What is the Torah's view on man's best friend? Well, if we look in this week's Parsha, there's a pasuk that tells us different things that cannot be brought upon the altar of God. Lo savi esnan zona mechir kelav beis Adonai lehecha l'chol neder. One should not bring the payment that was given to a harlot on the altar of God. And also, one should not take a payment given in exchange for purchasing a dog on the altar of God. Why? Ki soavas Adonai Elohecha gam shnehem. Because both of them are viewed as abominable in the eyes of God. So I can understand the first part of the verse. I can't bring the wage of a harlot. Let's say someone, God forbid, hires a harlot, and then he uses a kosher animal as the payment. That animal that was used in order to purchase, to be able to perform a sin, of course that can't be brought on the altar of God. That can't be brought on the mizbeach. That's a mitzvah haba ba'avera. You cannot perform a mitzvah by performing a sin to get to that mitzvah. That can't be done. That makes sense. That doesn't bother me. What I'm a little confused by is, why is it that if I purchase a dog and I make a payment for that dog, whatever animal I exchange for that dog can't be brought on the altar of God? What's wrong with that? Why are we singling out dogs? Now, where I grew up in Far Rockaway, Kew Garden Hills, in Queens, so some families, a lot of families in the area, they try to have, let's say 8 to 10 kids per household. So it makes sense with yeshiva tuition, the cost of living. Okay, it's not practical to have a dog. In fact, though, if we look at the Mefarshim, if we look at the commentaries on the Pasuk, we look at the commentaries in the Talmud, it seems like many of them don't have a very positive view of dogs, which is very surprising to many of us living in suburbia, many of us who own dogs. In fact, it says, Lo sasin damim veisecha, that you're not supposed to place blood in your house. What does that mean? Well, it can mean a snake. You shouldn't own a boa constrictor. It could also be referring to a kelev ra, a vicious, a bad dog. Now, of course, we can say this isn't talking about our golden retrievers. These aren't talking about our poodles, our friendly dogs. Okay, but I was looking through the Torah trying to find something positive about dogs in here, and this pasuk seems to tell us otherwise. But then I came to the Ralbag. The Ralbag has a question on this verse. What is the commonality between the Esnan Zona, the wage for the harlot's hire, and Mechir Kelev, that which is being exchanged, the animal being exchanged for the dog? I mean, there's other things that can't be brought on Mizbeach, that can't be brought on the altar in the temple. Why single out these two things? What do they have in common that the verse put them together? So Ralbag points out something really fascinating. He says, what is wrong when a man goes to hire a harlot? When a man goes to hire a harlot, what happens is, what's happening there? It creates destruction. It creates a form of separation. It ruins a relationship between this man and his wife when she finds out. That makes a lot of sense. And also, the same way the Esnan Zona, when this man hires a harlot, it could destroy his relationship with his spouse, with his wife. Similarly, the Torah also was concerned for destroying another form of relationship. Also, what happens when someone sells their dog? The dog, it's connected to its owner, and you're destroying that relationship. It is only human nature and the nature of a dog that a dog and their owner build a certain bond, build a certain relationship with one another, more so than other kinds of animals. And what's happening when a man sells his dog to someone else? He's breaking that relationship between him and the dog. And so what the Torah is telling us is, what is the purpose of bringing a sacrifice to God in the temple? The purpose is to strengthen the connection between us and God. We cannot strengthen the connection, the relation between us and God, if it is done by destroying a relationship, either between a husband and wife or between a dog and its owner. We cannot come closer to God by destroying relationships. We can only come closer to God by creating stronger relationships. So the same way someone builds a relationship with a spouse, someone builds a relationship even with an example like their pet. By doing that, that's a means to coming closer to God as well. Because if we, God willing, are able to perfect our relationships with our spouses, with our friends, our family, our fellow community members, and even with our pets as well, that is a way of training ourselves and, God willing, bringing us closer to building a relationship and understanding how to commit, how to have commitment, how to have fidelity, and ultimately use those traits to build a strong relationship with the Melech Malchei HaMelachim HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Have an excellent Shabbos, everyone.